What just happened affects not only the future of the Battlefront franchise, but any Star Wars game that's being made at EA. Electronic Arts was just sold for $55 billion to PIF, a Saudi investment company, Silver Lake, a tech investment firm, and Affinity Partners, which is owned by Jared Kushner. To put this into perspective, Star Wars back in 2012 was sold by George Lucas to Disney for $4 billion. And EA's just been sold for $55 billion.
$100 billion.
And I especially don't think this is necessarily a good thing for the future of EA and the future of Star Wars games, for reasons that I'm going to talk about in this video. But essentially, usually when a buyout happens like this, especially on this kind of scale, the buyer ends up usually trimming a lot of the fat, focusing on the main revenue generators, which again is FIFA, Madden, probably going to be Battlefield as well, mobile games. There tend to be layoffs, studio shutdowns, people end up losing their jobs, especially considering there was a $20 billion loan used to make this deal, which means EA now owes the bank $20 billion and is likely going to use that money to further develop its big money generators. Welcome to Bombastic, the new finance channel. Hey everyone, it's Andrew. So it turns out this deal is also the largest sale of private equity ever, meaning this is the most amount of money anyone or any company has ever spent in cash to buy another company. $55 billion US. Money! Now the actual acquisition, I believe, isn't going to occur until 2027, but to put things into perspective, according to Bloomberg, 75% of the revenue EA generate comes from in-game sales and microtransactions. It doesn't come from new titles being bought. And when you put that into perspective for pretty much every Star Wars game that's been made by EA, apart from the mobile game Galaxy of Heroes, none of them include microtransactions. Battlefront 2 notoriously did at launch. They were removed because of the controversy. This basically means from now on, as a result of this statistic, 75% of their money comes from in-game purchases. EA are likely just going to double down on that. Just further invest in FIFA, in Madden, in likely Battlefield, like I said. Skate is a perfect example. Yes, the game is free to play, meaning EA are relying on all of the in-game purchases to earn any kind of revenue. And when you take that statistic and group it with the fact that 80% of playtime in EA games is in existing IP, so it's not spent in games like, I don't know, Jedi Survivor, Split Fiction, Jedi Fallen Order, Star Wars Squadrons, even Battlefront 2. It's in their games that have existed for a long time, like FC or FIFA, like Madden, like The Sims. EA are generating most of their revenue from these kinds of games, meaning that moving forward, because of this acquisition, it's much less likely they're going to take risks. It's much less likely they're going to invest more money in, say, a new Star Wars game, say a game like Battlefront 3, because of the upfront costs involved and because releasing it and making money on it isn't a sure thing. EA have now got this down to a formula. They've been making, for example, FC for years and years and years. They've been making Madden for years. They've been making The Sims and updating that with DLC. All of these earn EA a lot of money, and all of that doesn't compare to the amount they would generate from a game like Battlefront 2. From a game like Jedi Survivor, a single player title that, yes, maybe will sell some copies and earn some millions of dollars, but is basically just a drop in the water compared to how much a game like FIFA would be making. Even a game like Apex Legends, because of microtransactions, would be earning EA so much more than a Jedi game, for example. A lot of people also now thinking that a studio like BioWare are in a lot of trouble after this deal, considering EA are likely now just going to focus on the football side of things, on guns, shooters, Battlefield, and not so much on the RPG side of things. Maybe no more Dragon Age, no more Mass Effect, no more games like Star Wars The Old Republic. It's a really big deal, and I guess you could argue that EA have been headed in that direction for years and years and years already. I mean, the FIFA microtransaction model kind of paved the way for microtransactions in the gaming space, in the gaming sports space anyway. And if you look at EA's history of making even Star Wars games over the past 10 years, it's never felt like they were the priority for the company. It's always felt like they've prioritized other titles. There is one Star Wars game though that EA have continued to update and support over the past 10 years, albeit scarcely and minimally. Can you guess what game that is? It's the mobile game, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. And even though I don't believe it's had any updates recently, this game, which some of you might never have even heard of, has been EA's most lucrative Star Wars game. This mobile game has earned EA more money than Battlefront 2, Battlefront 1, Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor, Star Wars Squadrons, and pretty much any Star Wars game that was made in the last 10 years. You know why? Microtransactions. In-game purchases, buying characters in this game is what's earned EA more money than any other Star Wars game they've made in the past decade. And if that isn't a clear sign of where the company is headed, and why they make the decisions they make, and why they've never taken the plunge in making Battlefront 3, then I don't know what is.
We were on the verge of greatness. We were this close.
What hope do we have for the future of Star Wars games? Well, at this stage in time, I'd say they're still making Star Wars Zero Company, the strategy game which is set to release in 2026. I'd also say they're still making Star Wars Jedi 3, the third and potential final game in Cal Kestis' journey. But aside from that, this could be the end of an era altogether. EA might never make another Star Wars game beyond that, especially with their CEO, Andrew Wilson, stressing in recent years how much he values the company's own IP and wants to focus on the company's own IP and not necessarily licensed IP. Star Wars being owned by Disney and Lucasfilm would mean that anytime EA makes a Star Wars game, they need to pay Disney and Lucasfilm a lot of money to make that game. They get a cut of the deal, essentially, because Disney and Lucasfilm own Star Wars. But for example, if EA continues to update a game like Apex Legends or The Sims, because they own those games, they own those IP, they get to keep 100% of the profits. So what does this mean for the future of Star Wars games? Well, it's just less likely we're going to see any new Star Wars games from EA, and it's less likely now, more than ever, that EA would ever make Battlefront 3. And it's going to be up to other game developers and other publishers to approach Lucasfilm with pitches for Star Wars games and for Lucasfilm to greenlight them, as it has been for a while now. Now more than ever for EA, I think the writing is on the wall. I think it's been clearer than ever that their priorities are not pretty much in Star Wars at all. They're not interested. But I think it's crazy to think that for so long, for 10 years in fact, they had an exclusive license to Star Wars. That deal only ended in 2023. From 2013 to 2023, EA were the only publisher in the world that were allowed to make AAA Star Wars games. And now they've moved in a complete different direction. And during that tenure, we only had a small handful of Star Wars games released, being Battlefront 1, Battlefront 2, Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor, and Star Wars Squadrons. 5 games in Galaxy of Heroes, I guess. 5 games in 10 years, I don't think is that great though. Even considering some of those games are among the best Star Wars games ever made, I still believe Battlefront 2 is the best multiplayer Star Wars experience on the planet. It's the best one that exists. I think that's a fact. I don't think you can really argue with that. And I think the Jedi games especially also offer a really unique, memorable Star Wars story. And I don't know whether to be optimistic or disappointed about this. I mean, how do you feel about this? Is this good news for Star Wars, potentially, that EA won't be necessarily making a lot more Star Wars games into the future? Perhaps you never wanted EA to make a game like Battlefront 3. Perhaps you'd prefer that goes to a different studio. That said, I think if DICE had made Battlefront 3, they could have absolutely nailed it, done a great job with it. But as is the case right now and has been for the past several years, DICE have been fully focused on Battlefield and, you know, doubling down, I guess, on EA's own IP. Same deal. EA keeps 100% of the profits Battlefield makes. And it seems like they're going to make a lot, considering they're essentially pitching the game as a huge competitor to Call of Duty, trying to get a huge market share there. And there have been rumors about them releasing Battlefield as a yearly title. Not sure that's going to go ahead, but the gaming landscape is certainly changing. Microtransactions are in, as they have been forever now. But all in all, I just hope we get more good Star Wars games in the future. It seems like that future is quite a ways off right now, though.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Also, I know this video was very money and finance industry based, but I feel like it's important to talk about these kind of things, especially when they have a broader impact on the gaming landscape and on the future prospects of Star Wars games. I do genuinely believe we're going to get some great Star Wars games in the future. I'm just not fully convinced EA are going to be making many more into the future beyond what they already have plans to do. But I could also be completely wrong about that. But I'd love to know what you think about this. Is this bad news for the future of Star Wars games, or is it potentially good? Let me know in the comments. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Discord, TikTok for more, and watch this video for some fun Star Wars content. Something that's not finance related. And thanks for watching this. Always remember,
Stay bombastic.